Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 25th day of April, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. There are no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere in the state here for the next couple of days, for tonight at least through tomorrow, and probably tomorrow night and Tuesday as well, as storminess, a lack of it, producing anything close to what would be considered a weather advisory, although there will be an increase in the winds up along the eastern Arctic coast and the northeast interior tonight into tomorrow, but that didn't result into any winter weather advisories. Otherwise, looking at satellite imagery, a lot of clear skies, high pressure. You can see the Queen Charlotte's, all the Gulf of Alaska, and a good portion of the Northeast Pacific. It's virtually cloud-free there, right up to the North Gulf Coast to southern Alaska. And you can see some clouds shifted on up into southern Cook Inlet there, just west of Kachemak Bay, and clouds Kodiak Island, and some rain going on with the frontal boundary there over the Aleutians and southeast Bering Sea, eastern Aleutians, and the Alaska Peninsula, with Cape Newenham and Chignik picked up about 0.2 of an inch in the last 12 hours, so pretty light rainfall amounts there. And Bethel, for example, just had 1/100th of an inch, St. Paul Island 1/10 of an inch, and everywhere else over the southwestern into the, as I mentioned, Bethel about 100th of an inch of precipitation, and light amounts out over the Aleutians, and basically dry everywhere else. Also a little windy on the with that system there over the southeast Bering Sea, with Igigit getting peak wind gusts of 45 miles an hour. Also Cape Newenham had a peak wind gust of 45 miles an hour as well. Port Hayden gust of 40. Cold Bay down from what you had yesterday, about gust of 30. And winds gradually coming up on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Kaparik now seeing gusts of 25 miles an hour out of the east. In fact, those winds will continue to increase up there tonight, and they're looking at full gales, 40-knot winds out of the east for the eastern Arctic coast tomorrow. So big increase in the winds there, as well as the eastern Brooks Range, and even the northeast interior there along the Porcupine River, possibly down south to Eagle. We'll see definite noticeable increase in the wind from what we've had today. Otherwise, as you can see, clouds out over the northern Bering Sea, but dry conditions. Could be a little bit of fog out there, St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait, maybe into the Chukchi Sea, but basically pretty good out there with just cloudy skies, light winds, and dry conditions. And then you pick up the showers over the southeast Bering. Due to the low there, parked over the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and surges of moisture rotating northward and then northwestward, bringing some light rain amounts, although up to 1/2 inch fell on the upslope areas of the Alaska Peninsula, actually up the coast there from Chignik. And then northerly winds on the gusty side with showers over the central Aleutians, but high pressure building into the western Aleutians, western Bering Sea. Light winds clearing skies out there, and nothing but sunshine from the Arctic coast, or roughly the north slope down into the Gulf of Alaska and the Panhandle. For tonight, not much change except for the increase in the winds there behind that Arctic front, the trailing edge of which is dragging through the northeast interior. Again, so the winds coming up there with gales late tonight through tomorrow in the forecast. Otherwise, winds stay light, skies mostly clear for the interior. Pick up some clouds as you head west toward the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound area, northwest coast, Norton Sound, and then chance of moisture increases in the form of rain or snow there, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Better chance into Bristol Bay in the Alaska Peninsula, with the best chance probably see the heaviest rainfall over Kodiak Island, with winds possibly gusting 30 to 35 miles an hour out of the east and southeast. Showers pretty numerous, so southeast Bering Sea or areas of rain, cloudy skies at some point in the night tonight for that green shaded area there into the Alaska Peninsula. High pressure building, keeping those weak troughs to the north there, so fair skies, lighter winds for the central eastern Bering Sea. No change for the Panhandle. Light winds continue tomorrow. Might see an increase in, well, that'll probably be tomorrow night and Tuesday. You'll see the increase in the winds for Lynn Canal area, Glacier Bay, with the front still north of the area tomorrow, but sunshine, the rule there for the Panhandle, southern Alaska, much of the interior. Maybe some clouds and maybe shower activity, light scattered shower activity possible there from the Yukon River area southward to possibly Northway Tok. See an increase in the clouds with the winds from roughly about Eagle to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast as that gradient tightens up there behind that front. Otherwise, that eastward shift a little bit of the northerly winds into the Fox Islands, and it stays occasionally damp for the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, with showers ending for Adak, and still a chance of some shower activity for Atka, with maybe winds gusting 30 to 35 miles an hour. Could see gusts to maybe 45, even 50 miles an hour possible for places like Nikolsky. Lesser winds though for Alaska, and light winds for the western Aleutians, with partly and mostly sunny skies under high pressure, and that pattern covers much of the central and western Bering Sea. But on Tuesday, that changes out west. Next system, high pressure holds but weakens. Light winds, mostly sunny skies for the Adak-Atka area. But in the afternoon, look for gale force winds to arrive for Shimei and Attu, with small craft advisories pushing into Kiska Island, maybe Amchitka late in the day, 25 to 30 knots, with 35-knot winds arriving for the Shimei Attu area with rain. Otherwise, scattered showers linger. Lingering showers linger for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, but very light and not bad for the eastern Bering. All of the interior looking really good in the afternoon, mostly sunny. Chance of maybe some light snow for the eastern Copper River Basin, Wrangell Mountains possibly, with the bulk of that moisture off into Canada, and a big change for the Panhandle as clouds and rain move in, especially to the south coast. Chance of rain and snow up north Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, with even over toward the eastern border looking at maybe some mixed precipitation, especially with any elevation at all there. But otherwise, winds on the decrease now, becoming lighter on Tuesday for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, eastern Brooks Range. Still a little breezy there along the upper Yukon River toward Eagle, but not too bad, lighter than what you'll probably see tomorrow night. And again, high pressure holding but weakening, but should keep that front to the north there. Some of that moisture may slip into the northwest areas Tuesday night and Wednesday, possibly. And for the lows tonight, upper 20s to mid 30s for south central Alaska, in the 20s for the Copper River Basin, and 30 to 35 Kuskokwim Valley, mid 30s for Bristol Bay, near 40 Kodiak Island, near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula, and lows in the 30s, call it 30 to 40 for the Panhandle from Yakutat to Sitka. And for the central interior, Tanana Valley, 25 to 30 or 34 degrees maybe. Some areas, windier areas, staying a shade above freezing, but in the mid-20s as you get into the Kobuk, Koyukuk, Upper Yukon Valley, to 15 to 20 for the Brooks Range. Single numbers, maybe even below zero for the North Slope, 5 below there, to single numbers, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, upper or mid-20s. Out over the Bering Sea there, St. Lawrence Island, and Shishmarefling in a low of 20, but Nome on the other side of the peninsula, about 11 degrees warmer at 31. And for the southwest coast, 30 to 35. Mid to upper 30s or in the 30s for the southwest interior, Bristol Bay, mid 30s for the Pribilofs and the Aleutians. And for the highs tomorrow, 50s to mid 60s there for the Susitna Valley, Matanuska Susitna Valley, maybe the Kenai Peninsula possibly, Copper River Basin, 60 or 58 to 63. In the 50s for the Panhandle, maybe some areas reaching the lower 60s, lower 40s Kodiak Island, lower 60s Northern Kuskokwim Valley, with temperatures near 60 for king salmon, and in the 50s to near 60 for the eastern interior, central interior, about mid 50s, and then cooling as you head north there, lower 20s for the North Slope and Arctic coast, 30 35 Bering Sea, lower 40s for Nome, and 50s for the inland areas of the southwest interior, lower 40s, upper 30s, lower 40s for the Bering Sea, to the Aleutians up the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula in the mid 40s. Looking at the lows for Tuesday morning, in the 20s, mid to upper there for the Copper River Basin, and back above freezing, Talkeetna now looking at a low of 34, 36 for Palmer Anchorage area, but some areas of the Kenai Peninsula, Soldotna dropping into the upper 20s in the interior areas, but then mid 30s for the Homer area. Mid 30s, 30 to 35 for the Kuskokwim Valley, mid to upper 30s Bristol Bay, 30 to 40 again for the Panhandle. Up in the interior, in the 20s, Tanana Valley Central Interior, 5 to 20 for the northeast interior, and 0 to 10 above for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, warmer on the west side, 20s for the Seward Peninsula, and 30s for the Aleutians, near freezing for the Pribilof Islands, upper 30s to near 40, Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak. And the highs for Tuesday, near 50, Copper River Basin, 55 to 60, South Central Alaska, Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Valley in the mid-50s, 40s for the Panhandle, interior 40s to lower 50s, and the 20s in the Arctic coast and North Slope, mid-30s in the Bering Sea.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First flight and weather graphic for Monday morning. We've got good VFR again, most of the interior. Some marginal VFR out west from the Long Mountains, southern areas, and the northwest coast, Noatak Valley. Down across Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, Kotzebue Sound, Yukon Delta becomes IFR over the Kuskokwim Delta, Nunivak Island to Cape Newnham into Togiak Bay, IFR, and also from Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula to the Fox Islands, IFR, marginal VFR for the remainder of the Aleutians and Bering Sea. VFR, though, Gulf of Alaska, southeast coast. And for the afternoon, moving on to the afternoon, good VFR again over the interior, Gulf of Alaska Panhandle, and actually expands westward a little bit in the afternoon. With just marginal VFR now along the coastal areas from Bristol Bay right on up to the northwest western Arctic coast, almost to, Wainwright or so, definitely Point Lay. And north side of the Seward Peninsula marginal. South side, though, Nome and Golovin, White Mountain, VFR for the afternoon. Marginal for the Aleutians, IFR in the north shores of Unimak, Unalaska Island, and the Alaska Peninsula. St. Paul, marginal, but St. George, possibly IFR. Kodiak IFR, and Kodiak Island IFR holds through Tuesday morning there. And IFR also for the Fox Islands. Otherwise, marginal VFR with some areas of, or an area of VFR there from Matka Island northward to St. Matthew and St. Lawrence Islands. Otherwise, Bering Sea, pretty marginal into the west coast there, Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound to Kotzebue Sound, northwest coast. Western North Slope in the Arctic coast, marginal with VFR holding, though, central eastern interior, most of the Yukon, Kuskokwim River valleys away from the deltas, and possible marginal VFR there along the eastern Alaska range, otherwise looking really good everywhere else into the Gulf of Alaska and Panhandle. Then for the afternoon, marginal VFR increases there over the Copper River Basin and the eastern North Gulf Coast, except for Yakutat. Marginal for the Panhandle, IFR, central and south coast now of the Panhandle. Some kind of change coming up for that area with IFR appearing in the afternoon. IFR Kodiak, south side of the Alaska Peninsula. And the next batch of IFR just trying to push into Shimei and Attu, but probably hold off till Tuesday evening. Passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, both another VFR day coming up, maybe even 2 more VFR days. Same thing for Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR for Monday. Rainy VFR, as well as windy VFR. Isabel, looking good, VFR. Another day, then you get a chance of marginal VFR on Tuesday there for Isabel and Metasta. And for Tanita, VFR, Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White looking good with VFR for another day or two. And for the freezing levels, 2,000 feet up north of the into the Arctic Ocean there, 4,000 feet actually north of the central Arctic coast, 6,000 feet. Now down a little bit, weakening upper level ridge holding, but slowly weakening, so not quite as warm, 8,000 feet now off the chart there, or way down to the south, 6,000 feet over the Panhandle in the eastern interior, and then 6,000 feet out over the far western Aleutians. And icing, looking at areas of isolated moderate from the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, into the southeast Bering Sea, possibly up to the Pribilofs, but probably just to the southeast of both St. Paul and St. George. An area of possible icing along that frontal boundary and the moisture band there across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, but staying south of the Barren Islands and everywhere else looking icing free, or will be icing free. And the jet stream showing, upper level high pressure right over the central interior, another high center up just off the Arctic coast there. Weak upper low there off Cape Lisburne, Point Hope area, and the main low not all that strong, just near the Alaska Peninsula. So winds aren't too bad, maybe 70 to 80 knots out of the north-northwest for the Aleutians. And at 9,000 feet, northerlies 35 to 55 knots there over the central Bering and southern Bering Sea, especially Adak and Atka. East-southeast 45, Barren Islands into Iliamna Lake and light elsewhere. And for the 3,000-foot winds, not too strong. East 50, though, across Kodiak Island, the Aleutian Range, and north-northeast 50 knots, southern Bering Sea in toward Adak, and about 35 knots farther to the north, but very light for St. Matthew Island and the Chukchi Sea, western Arctic coast. A little breezy there, increasing winds though along the eastern Arctic coast, and also increasing winds over the northeast interior, the tightening gradient there, Yukon Flats, the eastern Brooks Range. And with that, look for occasional or widespread moderate chop for at least, especially for small aircraft below 4,000 feet there, eastern Bulwark Sea coast, eastern Brooks Range, and the eastern interior as well, with light to isolated moderate chop for Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the Day-Night Band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, yeah, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side, and we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon, depending on...
That's that swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, you know, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. You know, it turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. What if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, especially, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
That happens quite a bit in Alaska.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image. That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible. The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery. Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora.
Wow.
And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kullik drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night in December.
This looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. And we can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights.
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here, so you don't get the green or the purple colors there. But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well. We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime. The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecasts for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about GINA and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, continuing to do a slow dissolve in northern Cook Inlet and Bristol Bay, just about ice-free now, and thinning out along the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast there, as well as the south side of St. Lawrence Island, eastern Norton Bay. That trend will continue probably for the next several days. Moving on to the coastal water forecasts, we've got, let's see, light winds out along the outer coastline, and not too bad over the inside waters as well. For the south coast there, south to southwest at 10 knots, seas 5 feet, and south to southwest on the north coast with 5-foot seas. And for the inside waters, central and southern areas, south to southeast winds, 10 knots, 2-foot seas, and Lynn Canal, southeast 15, seas 3 feet. Winds pick up on Tuesday. Lynn Canal northerlies come back. Small craft advisory level northerlies at 25 knots. Northeast 20 knots for Stevens Passage. Southeast winds 30 knots for Clarence Strait. And for the south coast, east southeast 30 knots. North coast east 25 knots. Seas running 10 to 12 feet. Northern Cook Inlet tomorrow. Light winds out of the northeast at 10. Light east winds at 10 for Prince William Sound. East-southeast 15 knots with 4 to 5-foot seas for the North Gulf Coast, and east 25 knots with 8-foot seas for the Barren Islands into Kamishak Bay. Southern Cook Inlet northerlies of 15 knots with 3-foot seas. And then for Tuesday, light southwest afternoon breeze at about 10 knots for Cook Inlet with 3-foot seas. Northeast, variable to northeast Prince William Sound at 10 knots, seas pretty slight, and east-northeast at 20 for the North Gulf Coast, 7 to 8-foot seas. And the windiest area, Barren Islands, small craft advisories, northeast winds at 25 knots. Kodiak Island, east side there, east at 30, but gale warnings for northeast 35-knot winds for Shelikof Strait, and from Cape Sarachev right up along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula through Bristol Bay, northeast at 25, southeast at 10 for the southern part, from Cape Sarachev to Castle Cape, southeast at 10, then Castle Cape to Sitkinak, southeast 30. And for Tuesday, north 15, Bristol Bay, north 20 knots, north side of the Alaska Peninsula, Pacific side, small craft advisories, northerlies 25 knots. And then from Castle Cape up across Kodiak Island, northeast winds 25 knots, 8 to 9-foot seas. On Alaska Island tomorrow, northerlies 25 to 30 knots, but gale warnings for Windmack Island into Adak and Atka, mostly north winds at 35 knots with 12 to 15-foot seas. Small craft advisory, northwest winds 25 for Amchitka Island, and then Kiskashimi and Attu west of 15. They'll swing around to the east ahead of the next system, pick up to 35 knots, especially for Shimi and Attu, coming up to 30 knots for Amchitka Island. Small craft advisories, Adak and Atka, northeast 25 knots, and small crafts also for the eastern Aleutians. Northerlies 25 to mostly 30 knots, seas 7 to 12 feet. Southwest coast, small craft advisories for 25 knot winds out of the north and northeast. Pribilofs northerlies at 30 knots, St. Matthew Island northwest 25, north at 20 for St. Matthew Island, 15 knots out of the northeast for Norton Sound. And for Tuesday, Norton Sound, north 15 St. Lawrence Island, and the southwest coast, all 20 knots for the southwest coast, Nunivak Island, seas at about 3 feet. Same thing for St. Matthew Island. Small craft advisories for the Pribilof Islands for north winds at 25 knots, seas right around 7 feet or so. Big increase in the winds for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast for tomorrow. Already seen that today, but full gales, good gales, 40 knots out of the east there for the east side, then about 30 knots out of the east for the central coast, but only 15 on the west side, and only 10 knots from Cape Beaufort to Wales out of the north and northeast. Then on Tuesday, southeast 10 knots from Wales to Cape Beaufort. Light winds now on the western coast, variable to east at about 5, 20 knots from the southeast central coast. Brisk wind advisories down from the wind from the gales for tomorrow on Tuesday, 25 to 30 knots. And for tonight, again, gradually increasing winds eastern Arctic coast there, and even the eastern Brooks Range area, as well as possibly as far south as Eagle. Start seeing an increase in the breeze. Otherwise, light winds for the remainder of the interior into the Gulf of Alaska, light winds for the Panhandle. Breezy and wet occasionally for the Kodiak Island area, areas of rain and snow. On the light side, especially up toward the Yukon Delta coast, and then areas of rain and showers, pretty widespread across the eastern Bering Sea to the central and eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. And then for tomorrow, that front keeps it unsettled for Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, and southern Bristol Bay, as well as the Fox Islands. Tightening gradient there, pretty brisk on the winds for the area from Atka to Unalaska, and windy for the eastern Arctic coast, northeast interior, but it lightens up on Tuesday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.